Hello, it's just me today to talk about hypernormalization. It is Tuesday, May 27, 2025. So Robert Reich has put up an article explaining something I also heard about on the Kyle Kalinske podcast. The big beautiful bill that the House has approved that's going to the Senate now, and I imagine will be slightly edited and approved by the Senate, um, includes a lot of financial things that are very troubling, but it also includes legal things, which are not getting as much press. And in particular, the Trump administration is now completely ignoring the courts. For several weeks now, they've been absolutely ignoring orders from the Supreme Court and lower courts about the immigrants they've deported with no due process, including completely innocent people and people that are legally here to be held permanently in prison in foreign nations, now Sudan as well as El Salvador. And this is completely illegal. And Trump is just ignoring what the law says and ignoring what the courts say. And people talked maybe 3, 4 weeks ago whether they would create a constitutional crisis. Well, now we're in that. But the big, beautiful bill will fix that because apparently the only thing a court can do to enforce its will, if Congress doesn't go along with them, is to issue contempt citations. And they can't touch Trump because the Supreme Court foolishly gave Trump complete power to do anything within that he can remotely connect to his duties with no punishment. But the people below him could be punished by contempt and put in prison. But they're going to remove that in the big, beautiful bill. They will remove that power so no federal court may enforce a contempt citation. So without contempt power, judicial orders are meaningless and can be ignored. So the United States government has been more stable than the Israeli government because we have three major branches to serve as check and balance on each other, and Israel had only two. There was only the executive and the court, and shortly before the invasion of Gaza, um, Netanyahu canceled the power of the Supreme Court, and there were huge protests in Israel against this. So he rules as an absolute monarch with no significant check on his powers. Then he became a wartime president by invading Gaza. Now he enjoys great support, which is why Trump could very well do the same thing. If he were less stupid and maintained better relations with the military, then he could do what most people do when they're losing power, which is start a war, so he can get the popularity of a wartime president. I don't think Trump has the stomach for that. Uh, Although he certainly could invade Iran or perhaps Canada or Greenland or many of the other places. I think he's threatened to invade 10 places so far in just the first 3 months of his presidency, but I don't think he has the courage to do any of it. Anyway, however, this measure would stop the courts pushing back on him. And the courts were important in his previous term, holding back the worst of his excesses, although they're very slow. So it's a really big issue, and it would be a lot better if the Senate would remove that part before approving this bill. But I don't expect them to, with a Republican majority in the Senate. I expect them to complain just to create the appearance of having resisted Trump to hopefully fool their voters into supporting them, and then just cave for everything Trump wants. We'll see. Uh, so this creates the situation called hypernormalization, which is a term that came about in the USSR. And I really feel this way. I also feel like it's what you find in the book Steppenwolf. The American society is collapsing. Our government we are now ruled by Nazis. Fascist Nazis they're now taking people off the street and sending them off to concentration camps with no due process. They could grab any of us at any time. And Trump and all the Fox News people will say, well, they were a terrorist. And we will never see us again. There'll be no court trial. There'll be no proof of anything. So we could be a citizen and we're gone. We can't get a chance to prove it. So it is the same stuff that happened in Soviet Russia and in under the Nazis. So you have this situation where everything feels broken, but life is strangely normal. Most of us just have a normal life. Uh, some of us are being disappeared by Gestapo just grabbing them off the street. But for most of us, that's not happening. And so you buy groceries, you go to your job, you see your family. Life is sort of normal, but you know something horrible is happening. Um, and you can feel a sort of load of fear, dread, denial, and dissociation, they say. So this is what they call hypernormalization. It is a thing to understand, and I highly recommend protesting. It helps you connect to the fact that none of this is right. And anybody that has the privilege of being a citizen, and your parents were also citizens, so even the current Nazi regime ruling America will not cancel your citizenship, as they have done for more than 200,000 people who were here legally and have suddenly been declared illegal. They haven't yet come for those of us whose parents were citizens, although I don't suppose anything will stop them. They have been flirting with just jailing anyone who dares to resist them, like Democratic lawmakers and judges that rule against them. So they may come a time when just failure to be a MAGA Republican is an imprisonable offense or a cause to lose your citizenship, but we aren't there yet. And we can avoid going to that craziness by having peaceful protests now. So I highly recommend anybody who can engage in peaceful protest because it really affects these people because they are emotionally fragile. They pretend to be tough, inspired, violent military people, but they're really just a bunch of cowards posing for a TV reality show. And anybody suggesting that they are not fun and not cheering for them really, really bothers them. All Trump cares about is crowd size and ratings. He's just a TV performer. He's not a serious politician. Anyway, here's a very interesting case. As you know, one of the boogeymen that the right uses to try to control people is to blame trans people for everything, as if somehow hurting trans people would make your life better. When in fact, there are very few trans people and they're not making any trouble. And picking on them is just like kicking your dog. It might make you feel better, but it doesn't actually improve your life. So in Utah, the Utah governor, Spencer Cox, was one of the rare Republican governors who seemed to truly care about the well-being of transgender kids. He said, I don't understand what they're going through or why they feel the way they do, but I want them to live. And he did this in 2022. So he vetoed a bill that would have banned their participation in sports, which is the big issue on the right. Trans people in sports are somehow destroying the world. Now, I always said I don't understand sports anyway, and sports have never been a big part of my life. But what he says here is the research shows that even a little acceptance and connection can reduce their suicidality significantly. So that helps me understand it. Yeah, kids, high school kids participating in sports makes them feel better, makes them feel part of the group, and banning them from sports would make them feel more isolated and rejected and unworthy, and then they might kill themselves. That makes sense. So, however, they also banned transgender care for teenagers, I guess. And when they did that, they commissioned a medical review, a systematic review of medical evidence around puberty blockers and hormone therapy, saying, we think this stuff is bad, but instead of just as usual for MAGA people, just declaring it bad and taking immediate action to stop it without bothering to do any science, they said, well, let's have an official review to see if these things actually help people. And what they found was that they do help people. They concluded that the treatments are effective in terms of mental health, psychosocial outcomes, and the induction of body change consistent with the affirmed gender in pediatric gender dysphoria patients. The evidence also suggests that the treatments are safe in terms of changes to bone density, cardiovascular risk factors, metabolic changes, and cancer. So this reminds me of when I was a kid in the Nixon days, they tried to prove that marijuana was bad for you so they could ban it and get rid of it. And they similarly had medical studies, and they were very irritated by the fact that the medical studies did not find that marijuana was bad for you. They kept trying to say marijuana is killing people, but it wasn't. And it doesn't do anything much bad to you. And the same thing here. This transgender care is not murdering our kids or ruining their lives. It seems to be medically justified that there's a group of people who really have gender dysphoria, and these puberty blockers and hormone treatments really make them feel better. So uh, we'll see if they actually repeal the ban in Utah now that they got the answer they didn't want from that study. Anyway, I don't think the other red states care about science or whether what they're doing is true or false or justified or whether I think they prefer things that hurt people. This is the thing about Trump administration. He wants to hurt people. The cruelty is the point. The purpose of Trump policies is not to make anybody's life better. It is to make everyone afraid. So we will just cower and submit and not question anything he does so he can just steal all our money. That's all it is. It's basically nothing more than a mafia extortion racket coming in and threatening to smash you with a baseball bat unless you give them their money. That's what the Trump administration is. All right. Anyway, and so a lot of people on the left are complaining about the corruption of Trump's crypto party, where the top 220 donors to whose Trump coin got to go to a special party at Mar-a-Lago. I actually think, I mean, you could argue that the Trump coin itself is clearly illegal, unconstitutional as part of the emoluments clause, and it clearly makes it possible for anybody to bribe Trump. And a bunch of foreign investors immediately did put a bunch of money in there, expecting to get favors from Trump. And in Vietnam, they put up a Trump tower or a Trump resort or something right away. You know, this is absolutely true that it's completely unconstitutional and it serves as a way to funnel money into the Trump campaign. However, this specific event for the top 220 donors is not even influence purchasing, it's just theft. And that's the thing about Trump. Trump always has to screw everybody, including his friends and supporters. So people put millions of dollars in the coin to go to this event, and then at the event, they got a small plate of lousy food, and they didn't even get to have any time with Trump. They showed up, he spoke for like 15 minutes and just left, and they got nothing. They didn't even get to influence him. So the top 25 backers actually got to have a reception with him, but the others didn't even get to talk to him. So anyway, that's what you expect out of him. There's a article that came out saying something I've certainly observed. Computer science now has a high unemployment rate, one of the highest unemployment rates. As recently as 2 years ago, computer science was a greatly sought after career, major in college because you would sail right into a good job, but not anymore. Since Elon Musk fired everybody at his company and all the other all the other tech companies started laying off people, the market is flooded with highly experienced people trying to find a job. So it's very difficult for new entrants to find a way in. Not impossible, but much more difficult than it used to be. So our program is much less appealing in that regard. And there was a survey. There's an Axios article reporting it. There was a survey of American people to see what do you think about companies, businesses adopting AI. And a vast majority of people say we really wish businesses would not rush into AI, but instead be careful and make something that's actually useful. So I think this is, I'm glad to see it. I think I agree with the majority of people. I consult for companies, and this is what I tell them. Don't just purchase an AI and throw it, like replace your customer support division with some chatbot. Don't just rush into this by believing what a vendor tells you. Instead, do deploy it on a small scale, register the complaints, keep track of how well it works, because the fact is none of this stuff works all that well. And it tends to just have a bad experience for the end user. And don't move away from having humans talk to your end users in a hurry. Deploy these things carefully, monitor their efficiency, and be suspicious of them. Your customers are not going to say, gee, I wish you had AI. You're not up with the times. Quite the opposite. They're going to say, I wish you didn't have AI because that stuff is garbage. It has to work better before people are actually going to want it. However, I did come across Notebook LM. A Notebook LM is an AI which does not hallucinate, and it is intended to help students. And I think I'm going to assign it to all my students next semester as a project. Notebook LM does not go on the general web like ChatGPT and just give you information it found on the internet somewhere. What it does is you upload documents like your textbook, and then it looks in that book. So just as sort of a super index to look up things in your book. And they say it's very helpful for students. It's not just doing their homework for them. It's not plagiarizing stuff. It's just like a better way to look inside the book and say, I don't understand this. Please explain it. And you can upload several books and papers and stuff to get all the information you want. And it will look just in there. And I tried it and it works. So that's very interesting. And also, Gemini now has the ability to manage your Gmail inbox. And the article I read about it, the guy freaked out and said this invaded my privacy. It was able to deduce who my childhood sweetheart was from somehow looking at my emails from 15 years ago. But, in my opinion, Google already has access to all my emails all the way back. I've been using Gmail. So well, my problem is my inbox is full of spam. I miss the important things. So I think I'm going to try this to see if it can more efficiently find the important stuff out of my inbox. And normally it costs $0 for a month and then $20 a month after that. But if you have an EDU email address, there's a student deal that will give you 15 months of it free. So I think I'm also going to write that up and give it to my students. They can all try that. I'm going to try it and see if it helps clean out my inbox. This is a big problem in my life. A lot of people want to email me, and when they do, I frequently never see the email. It just gets buried under spam or thrown away as spam. So the Russians are really monstrously attacking Ukraine again with a huge flood of hundreds and thousands of drones, and now they're sending swarms of drones, hundreds of them all working together at a time to make it very hard to stop them. And a engineer, when they dismantled one of the drones, which they do, they found a note left by a sympathetic Russian engineer giving some clues about how the new drones work. And so the way the new drones work is they are controlled via bots on the Telegram social media platform, and then they are driven by AI. So they piggyback on the Ukraine's own internet and mobile internal networks. So it's connecting to networks and using it to go to Telegram for instructions. So, and they're also sending flight data and live video feeds back to human operators in real time via Telegram. So that's interesting. And it does suggest various ways to control them. For example, if you were to take the internet gateways in Ukraine and filter the Telegram traffic in some way so that these live video feeds wouldn't work, then that might freeze the drones or just cut off the internet in an area, that sort of thing. There's another free space optics company, one called Terra, Taara, and these guys use focused beams of light. They can send data up to 20 kilometers at speeds of 20 gigabits per second using a thing that looks like a traffic light on a pole. And they say it uses advanced techniques so it can punch through bad weather, which is a big problem with earlier forms of free space optics. So this may be a big deal. And there's an article where O3, the Google LLM, was used to find a zero-day vulnerability, and that's interesting. So I looked into it and found, I read this article, and it was less impressive than it sounds from the headline. Uh, and what this guy did was he's looking for vulnerabilities in the Linux kernel, and so he started with a vulnerability that he already knew about, and fed up just the driver. It's looking in command handlers. So he fed up the code just for that and said, look for bugs in this. And he didn't just run it once the way you would in a chat interface. He used a command line interface with a carefully tailored prompt to try to guide it to find vulnerabilities. And he ran it 100 times. And after running it 100 times and accumulating all the results, he found that it found the vulnerability in 8 of the 100 runs. In 66 of the runs, it said there's no bug present, and the remaining 28 were false positives. So, and he had carefully written his prompt to try to avoid false positives. So that is not terribly impressive. But then that was a known vulnerability. Then he tried to scan the larger code base of 9,000 lines of code to find other vulnerabilities in handlers in the kernel and found that one of the 100 runs found a new zero day. So you could say large language model successfully found a zero day. You could also say the large language model was extremely inefficient and you had to dig through a whole lot of trash to find the zero day. So you can argue. But I imagine a fair statement, like I'm always telling everybody, is if you are skilled in a field, if you are a skilled vulnerability researcher with some experience finding zero days, then the large language models can help you. It is not replacing a human at all, very far from it, with a success rate of 1%. It which is true of all these AIs. They're useful if they are supervised by a skilled human. That's why I really don't think they're going to be firing all the humans and replacing them with AIs. When they try that, they discover that the AIs have serious problems because they don't understand anything they're doing and they don't know the truth from a lie. So they're not capable of doing a job, any job, even the low-level jobs they try to use for, like replacing your help desk line. What they are capable of doing is helping a human worker do a job so they get more work done. Just like a word processor or a search engine, they're tools which can help a skilled human do a better job. But they do not replace the human skill because they do not have our level of comprehension remotely. They don't understand anything they're saying. They don't know whether they're lying or telling the truth, and they have no judgment, and so on. They have no idea of importance. They have no idea of morality. They're in no way a replacement for a human. All right. Here's something interesting. Apparently, a lot of cars have LiDAR. Apparently, from this article, even Teslas have LiDAR. I thought they got rid of it. And this means when you take a photograph of a car with your cell phone, you can permanently damage your cell phone. If the LiDAR beam hits your cell phone, it's invisible infrared, but your camera can see it, and it is so bright, it permanently damages the pixels in your camera, leaving permanent, glowing dots in all your future pictures. So that's a thing to know about. Uh, and there is a new technique called intensity interferometry, where they took 8 laser beams and sent them to an object about a mile away, and they were able to get the resolution down to 3 millimeters, or a single beam would be 10 times more blurry. They were able to get down to sort of reading a newspaper headline from a mile away. So that there may be some privacy implications, but it shows long distance vision is greatly improved. And in a similar vein, there's a game, I forget the name of it, my sister's big in it, where you take a photograph like out the window of like trees in the corner of a building and you try to figure out where that is. There's people all over the world use all sorts of search engines and stuff to do it. Apparently, ChatGPT is really good at this now. You can just take a picture of anything and it will figure out exactly where you are. And people say this will have huge privacy consequences. All the innocent snapshots that people put up on Instagram and on Twitter and everything may reveal your exact location in a way that is very easy for anybody to find you. So that's a thing to be aware of. And authors are leaving AI prompts in their published novels now. So a bunch of authors are using AI to write the novel, and then they're just publishing it without even cleaning out the prompt. So there's a romance novel called Dark Hollow Academy, and the readers who read it found in chapter 3, in the middle of a steamy scene between the heroine and the dragon prince, there's this: I've rewritten the passage to align more with J. Bree's style, which features more tension, gritty undertones, and raw emotional subtext beneath the supernatural elements. So not only are they using AI, they're imitating other people and leaving the prompt in there. There was also a YouTube video linked where the start of the YouTube video describes to the AI what the YouTube video should make. And I should mention, one of my friends got fooled by a fake political video, and I got fooled by one briefly a week or two ago. There are fake political videos that claim to have dialogue between prominent politicians and Supreme Court justices arguing things. I've come across 2 of them. And when I Googled, those politicians never testified at the Supreme Court. Um, they wouldn't be their role. It's totally fake. People made a fake news report of this exciting political interchange, probably just to get clicks and make money on YouTube. So it's not exactly a deep fake because it didn't actually have video of these people talking, but it reported on it like a news story. So uh, it's a thing to be aware of. A new type of fraudulent material on YouTube, fake news, that it's got all the tricks of fake news. It's emotionally exciting, and you think, oh, if that's true, perhaps my politician that I like went and sold that Supreme Court justice off, and it actually worked or something. But watch out. I always try to verify. When I get suspicious, I try to find a reputable news source and verify these things. But one of them fooled me for a while, and I bet there's going to be more of that happening. And the last one I want to mention is Hope. Hope is the hacker conference in New York. I submitted a bunch of stuff and I haven't yet been approved, and I think maybe this is why. their attendee list is down by 50%. And this one's funded by people paying tickets, so their money is only half of what it should be. And they say that's because a lot of their attendees come from overseas, and it's the Trump immigration crackdown that scared them away. Foreigners are reluctant to come to America, and I certainly encourage that. If I was from another nation, I would strongly recommend that you do not come to America under the Nazi regime because they were grabbing people at the border and locking them up in prison for doing essentially nothing wrong. And the racism in America, hostility towards all foreigners is outrageous. I think they're right not to come, but apparently it's messing up Hope. They say Hope normally has 1,000 people and they only have half as many. Seemed bigger than that when I went there. But anyway, that's a thing to know. And well, that's all the news I have. So I'll have another one of these on Friday, and I imagine Doug will be back then. Farewell.